Welcome back to DNF, the greatest F1 podcast in the world. Spencer Hall is here. Jessica Smetana is here. And the season's over and we're sad.
Mhm.
We have our constructor. We have our driver of the year. Our champions have been crowned and it's all over.
Done
so sad.
and done and dusted, as the Brits are fond of saying. Yeah, we're finished. And I mean, before we get to the particulars of Abu Dhabi, which I want to get to the way the season ended. And I feel like it ended in Vegas. And I feel like it ends most years now, right? The 2 years that this has happened, Vegas feels like the end of the season.
North America is like here, and then we sort of like it de-escalates as the races go on, I think.
Right, because
the last couple of years at least.
And I feel like that's max one. And once the individual is decided, then we've really got kind of, I think we have very limited drama in terms of what's going to happen, right? Like, I think once that happens, the constructors is interesting, but it's secondary to the big enchilada of the individual championship. The way this ended, to me, feels like maybe a testament the season's a little too long. We've rigged it incorrectly. Like, I think there are too many races. I think that it's inevitable in a points-based competition that sometimes things will end early. But 2 years running now, it's felt a bit anticlimactic. That may be a good thing given how seasons that come down to the last race have ended in recent F1 history. Not necessarily with the least controversial of outcomes, if you catch my drift. But overall, I was very pleased with the entire season because it was not what I expected at all.
I would agree with you if it weren't for one thing, which is that the lead up to Abu Dhabi produced some of the best off-track drama of the entire season. And I think it made it very interesting going into Sunday, even though nothing ended up ultimately happening between Max and George Russell. But after Sunday was over and the season had officially come to a close, I kind of was wishing we had like one more or two more just to see if that would continue a couple more weeks, because now there's going to be a long 3-month break where everyone will probably kiss and make up, at least in appearances, probably only in appearances. And man, I just think it would have been so great to see that continue for a couple more weeks.
I think we can say definitively the girls were fighting.
Oh my God, they were so mad. We need to dig into all of that. We need to dive into all of that. But before we do you want to say anything about McLaren winning the Constructors Championship? Obviously, I think to fans care more about the Drivers Championship. I think to teams and, workers and factory people and mechanics and everything, they obviously care about this one. This is the big one for them. But McLaren came into the weekend with a 21-point lead. They won their first championship since 1998. It was sort of anticlimactic, I guess. Like, there was maybe you thought it might get a little dicey, but Lando had such a great race that kind of never was in question. All he had to do was finish where he was, and they were not going to give up the points needed for Ferrari to come back and win it. So what do you think of all of that?
I think I think it's cool to watch the team celebrate. I love to see that because, especially if you have been in the paddock, you know that I think from a television perspective, see drivers as 2 or 3 people. And then when you see them from the paddock side, you realize that it's this machine, this enormous collective of people all working for really long hours and all over the globe to try to win this thing. It's cool to see that validated. I really do. Like when Lando jumps over, right? And there's just like a mob of guys and ladies in papaya all just grabbing onto it. That's cool. I like to see that.
Yeah, and they won with did you see the points total that McLaren had at the end of the season?
No.
Would you like to guess? It's a 3-digit number that is representative of evil.
666?
It was 666 points to Ferrari's 652 points, which a lot of people were saying, man, McLaren must have done a deal with the devil to get that, which I I could see the argument for. But
Yeah.
yeah, they had 666 points, which is very funny.
That's a beautiful thing. I also enjoyed, there's a lot of little tie-ins at the end that happen with teams and changeovers and emotions and people coming and going. In this case, going, because I'm going to reference Lewis Hamilton
Oh my
and his
God.
departure.
Emotional.
Were you ready to hear Toto Wolff say, I love you, Lewis?
I I was not ready for that, and I was not ready for Lewis to talk about Bono saying "hammer time" for the last time. I think we have a clip of it that we're gonna play because that was what really got me.
Race, Lewis, it was thrilling to watch. Listen, we heard hammer time again. You make a pass on the last lap. How much nostalgia were you feeling out there today?
Yeah, I think when he said it was hammer time, I did notice in the moment. I was like, that's the last time I'm going to hear that. So it really clicked for me in that moment.
No, wasn't ready for that. I was not ready for a couple of things about Lewis. I wasn't ready for, he had this moment, and Sky did a good job capturing it, where he just sort of knelt by the car.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that.
And he's so composed, and everything is so rehearsed, and I think Lewis is always conscious of the cameras on him.
For sure.
I don't think that was for us. I don't. I think that was for him. And you get, this is a fizzle of an ending for Hamilton's career. It's by far his most disappointing season as a professional in a lot of ways. It was cool to see him take a moment for himself, and I think that was a moment for himself. It's it's the video game moment when you thank your horse for carrying you around. It was a little quiet moment between Lewis.
What analogy.
And the car. I love it.
I feel like, so I'm trying to think of another sport that ends its season where everyone, winners, losers, middle of the field, everyone's together at the end. Like most sports have a championship and the only two teams there are the first and second place teams. But F1's end of season always feels like the last day of high school, where you're like passing the yearbook around and everyone's like saying goodbye, and like there's like this person's going to this school next year, you might not see him anymore, and this person's transferring to this other team school, and there's like all these different sort of weird emotional things happening, and sad for some people that are probably gone. Colapinto, Valtteri, Checo, all of these different drivers.
Joe,
you're like,
who knows? Yeah,
you're going to a college that we've never heard of. We're never going to see you again. And then there's Lewis, who is like, this historic partnership with Mercedes has ended. He's still going to see all of these people in the paddock, but he's going to be wearing red next year. He's not going to be on their team. They're going to be competitive against one another. They're going to be rooting against one another. It's going to be a very different dynamic. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's like it was sort of like, I vacillated between like, oh my God, they're acting like he is they're never going to see him again. And also like, this is a pretty historic moment because Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, many people have said this since Sunday, but like it is one of the most successful partnerships in the history of this sport. And it was his last time ever driving the Mercedes. It's very sad.
Yeah, that's sad. And it's one of the little facets you get in the last week. You get a lot of the girls are fighting. You get a lot of people who are obviously tired of the smell of each other's farts, right? They've been in the room. They've been in the same room way too long.
That was also Valtteri. He was like being very, very honest about his career moves and choices. And you could tell he was sort of relieved that this season's come to an end.
Yeah, and no one can blame him whatsoever.
For sure.
This was, you get little moments in this, I think, when like, the veil falls, the facade isn't, everybody kind of leaves, and you get moments that are like Valtteri's brutally honest, where he says that, this was not fun. This was not what you want to do.
I shouldn't have done this. Yeah.
I shouldn't have done this, but Valtteri's also, I think he's very cognizant that a complaint from an F1 driver aired into the public is that of the utmost privilege.
Well, he picked up the tab at the driver's dinner, so I think
picked up the tab at the driver's dinner. Right?
No one's mad at Valtteri. No one's gonna be like, man, that guy is a whiny, complainy, loser. No one. Generous man. He started a whole charity, like the whole thing.
Right. But you also get moments. I don't know if you saw this, and I will tell you for anyone listening. There's going to be things that we talk about on the last, podcast about this season that have no relevance to wing differential or tire wear. This is where you get the human side of it. And I love seeing, there was a fantastic photo, and please post-production, if we can put this in there, it would be fantastic. Please, with all due credit, because the photographer's name is slipping my mind, but she's really good at her job because she caught Max's girlfriend's daughter peeking into Max's helmet. Like Max, Max
that's
is
cute.
Yeah, so Max is kind of glowering. He's kind of like looking out, like, "Grr," and she's got the helmet visor open, and she's up on the car, like leaning in, like, "Hey!" And this little 5 or 6-year-old girl that is staring at the shark of all sharks, right? Who to her is just that's just like stepdad, basically. Just, hey.
We also found out Max is having a child in the near future. So that was a big news dump before this race as well, Spencer. And the timing of that was interesting too. But yeah, I very, very end of high school vibes. I feel like someone should play Green Day, Good Riddance.
Good Riddance.
As everyone kisses and shakes hands and cries at the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Yeah, which is cool. I love that. I know that, if you wanted the big critical stuff, that all ended a couple of races ago, with the exception of the constructors. And you got to see Lando, who, lest we get too sentimental, said out loud on a mic, yeah, Zach Brown said he and I are getting hammered tonight. So that's how they celebrated. They went
Lando also said when they were celebrating that next year is this year was McLaren's year. Next year is going to be his year too. And I thought that was interesting because if there's one complaint I have about this season, it's that the title fight that we sort of had for most of the season never really was a real title fight because half of the party involved didn't actually think they could win the title at any point until it was too late. And so I think if there is one thing stopping McLaren from having a championship driver next season, it would be the belief that they could have one. And it seems like at least by the end of the season, at least by week 25 or whichever race this was, they finally were like, oh, our car is good enough that we could have one of these guys win a championship next year. I wish they had come to that conclusion sooner. But at least, hey, better late than never. We've got 3 more months till testing starts in February.
Testing starts in February. That's, again, I'm going to go back to what I opened with maybe the season's too long.
It's long. It's so long.
Maybe it's too long, right? This is happening in all of my sports right now, where you go, I think you've made too much of this, and you might want a little bit less.
I could not agree with you more at this moment in time as I plot my travel to South Bend in December. Do you want to talk about any of the race incidents? The only one that stood out to me was the Verstappen Piastri thing, because Max's reaction was to call the stewards idiots on the radio, which he will not be getting fined for apparently. But as I was
last week of high school,
right? You can call your teacher stupid on the last day of high school. You've already graduated. It doesn't matter.
We can't even hold your degree. There's no one to call at your college. The permanent record is a lie. We can go ahead and call the steward stupid.
Yeah, exactly. So he got a 10-second penalty for that. And it looked like, maybe that would be a potential big deal for McLaren, because Piastri was the victim of that. But it ended up obviously not mattering. And I did also read on the note of punishments for Verstappen, he's going to be serving his penalty for swearing next week in Rwanda, which is where the driver's banquet is this year, I believe. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit. They're doing some sort of driving clinic or something there, and that's where he's serving his community service. So we're tying that up with a neat little bow. Yeah, right. It's okay, this is a ridiculous season for Max Verstappen.
Is that surprising though? If we want to put it in the larger sense of things, that if you are looking ahead, and we're going to look ahead a little bit, McLaren's not going to back down from Verstappen. And if it's not going to be Lando, who, if we'll remember, there's been one driver who was universally unafraid of Max Verstappen, that's Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis Hamilton at times has ended up both underneath, on top of, to the side, and in direct collision with Max Verstappen, because that's how that kind of challenge ends. Piastri might be the one who takes up that role of enforcer, right? I'm not saying that he's doing that as the number 2 driver. No, I think he might do that on his own, because I don't think if Lando, I believe, does not want to lose the car and not finish the race. Piastri, I think, might be willing to do that, because I think he, just based on that, and based on attitude versus attitude here, Piastri and Verstappen to me are a lot closer in temperament than Norris and Verstappen.
I would take it one step further, which is Lando doesn't want to lose his friend. Like, Lando has sort of backed down every time that the two of them have come to almost blows in these situations. But one driver who has decided he will not be backing down to Max Verstappen as well, George Russell. Spencer, you want to get into the drama of the year, which emanated from the moments after the Qatar Grand Prix last weekend?
Yes. George Russell refusing to stop making George Russell happen. It's going to make George Russell happen. George Russell by, first of all, getting into a penalty brouhaha with Max Verstappen, and saying that he had lost all, and that once Verstappen heard what happened, Verstappen said that he had lost all respect. I believe that is verbatim for George Russell, saying that you see a very different person in the paddock than you do on the track. I think that's
two-faced. Yes. He said he was two-faced, and that he lost all respect for Russell for trying to screw him over last weekend. So I was listening. So fast forward to the media going on for this weekend's race in Abu Dhabi. More information came to light about the stewards meeting last weekend, where Max and George both had to go and talk about the qualifying incident. So I was listening to Ted's Notebook, the Sky Sports pod, where Ted talks into his phone on a bus. Usually
he's walking
around. He's on location, and he's like, these are the things I heard today and the things that I saw today. So from what I understand, reporters were aware that there was some sort of incident last weekend where words were exchanged in the stewards meeting, but it hadn't been confirmed. No one knew exactly what was said. But there may have been Netflix cameras in the vicinity during one of these face-to-face altercations. So that might be interesting. This was in this most recent Thursday's Notebook episode. So if you want to listen to that, please do, because I'm just summarizing it here. That's the primary source for all of that information. But anyways, so what came to light in Abu Dhabi a few days later was that George claims Max Verstappen said, quote, let me find the quote. I don't want to get the quote wrong, because I feel like this. Okay. He said he would put.
I have not seen this quote.
Oh, you've definitely seen this. He said he would put me on my fucking head in the wall. That quote. Yeah, you've definitely seen that quote. So that was the one that came out a few days later. It was like, ooh, that's a little more aggressive than your average. I've lost respect for you. Blah, blah, blah. And Verstappen obviously is denying that he said that. He's like, that's not what happened. So then we get Toto and Christian Horner going after each other in their subsequent media interactions after Qatar. So this is now we're still in Abu Dhabi. We're finding out about things that happened in Qatar. And I know this timeline is a mess, but bear with me here. The upshot is that Max and George clearly had this qualifying incident where George feels like Max took it a step too far with what he said to the stewards. And George is saying that Max is a bully, that no one wants to stand up to him because they're afraid, that Michael Masi would have feared for his life if he had been, if roles were reversed in the 2021 Abu Dhabi race, Masi would have feared for his life going against Max, making a decision that would have been bad for Max and not bad for Lewis. And then he made another comment about how Red Bull mechanics were all trying to leave Red Bull in droves after the Hungarian Grand Prix because of what Max said on the radio there, which was one of his outbursts earlier this season. So this was a whole thing. George went crazy in this and just said it all. He said everything, and he's claiming that everyone agrees with him. They're just afraid to say what's on their mind. And then Toto Wolff was like, yeah, and also Christian Horner is a yapping little terrier.
Every Christian Horner insult boils down to you are a small dog.
You
You're
are
short.
annoying, and we don't
You're
like
short.
you.
You're short and annoying. Like, and I love that Toto fundamentally, like, George Russell can go off for paragraphs and paragraphs, and it still won't make anyone as mad as Christian Horner is when Toto Wolff is like, "You a small dog."
Can you do yapping little terrier in the voice?
Yes, he is a yapping little terrier.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. We have the video of Horner's response, which is funny for other reasons. We are going to play that now because we need to react to this live.
I'd rather be a terrier than a wolf, maybe.
Toto Wolff describes you as and I'm quoting him, a yapping little terrier.
Well, look, I love terriers. I think they're great dogs, and I've had 4 of them. I had a couple of Airedales, which are the king of the terriers. I had a couple of West Highland terriers called Bernie and Flavio. And the good thing about a terrier is they're tremendously loyal. I mean, Bernie, he was an aggressive little dog. He'd go for anybody. And Flavio, he was a bit more chilled out. He liked to spend time. He probably ate a bit too much as well. But look, I think to be called a terrier, is that such a bad thing? They're not afraid of having to go at the bigger dogs. I'd rather be a terrier than a wolf, maybe.
Boo.
Yeah. You know what? That's about as good as you could get coming off that, right? Except I'd rather be a wolf because a wolf is larger, and a wolf doesn't sit. A wolf follows his own rules.
It's such a lame comeback. Oh my god,
it's so very lame.
Oh, because his name's
this follows, by the way, in our theory that Christian Horner has no game.
Oh my god,
no game, no spontaneity, no nothing. Cannot trash talk. Meanwhile, Toto's just got bars. You put Toto on a mic, 2 sentences, you're dead. It's
such a bad comeback, and the rambling about his Airedale terriers just so it's such a non sequitur. He's looking for the retort. And then he finally gets at the end, and then he says, "Maybe I'd rather be a terrier than a wolf. Maybe. Don't short that.
You're about that short guy life again." This is the most, please don't put it on the internet that I was bothered. Please don't put it in the paper that I was bothered. He's deeply bothered at all times. That's why he can't stop talking into a mic.
Yeah, he can't stop. You're right. Yapping little terrier remains the best insult that has ever happened, at least this season in F1. I can't think of anything better than yapping little terrier, and hearing it in Toto Wolff's voice is amazing.
I will always be taller than you. Always.
I saw someone posted well, what is Christian Horner supposed to say? Toto's incredibly handsome, rich, and tall and athletic. What comeback do you have to? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's fair.
Yeah, nothing. Just gotta be like, I don't know, man. You do you.
Yeah. So that was the whole Max George drama. I think that the best possible way that this could have come to a head also was that they had the yearly drivers dinner that night too. If this happened 6 months ago or 3 months into the season, we're not really probably thinking about it at the end of the year oh man, where are these guys sitting at dinner? But instead we got full diagrams of where every driver was sitting at the drivers dinner that they do every year before the final race of the season, and that was awesome.
And then they've all got to sit together. Yeah, it's delightful. This is, by the way, where we miss a Kimi Räikkönen. We need one person who diffuses all of the tension by being even more alien, hostile, and strange than we need to find a driver so antisocial and so not house trained, and just drop him into the middle so that they can all go, well, we're bad, but have you seen that guy?
There was reporting that all of the drivers got there and left a seat open next to Max, and George was the last person to arrive and walked in, and Max was like, "Hey, George," and George took the seat and moved to the other side of the table because he didn't want to sit next to Max. So everyone, all of the drivers were in on it. They all posted the picture with funny captions. Lando's caption was something along the lines of "Yes, the two you're thinking about were sat as far away as possible from one another." And like we mentioned, Valtteri kindly picked up the check.
See, that's the peacemaker. That's what he's here for. We need him at Red Bull next year. Going back, by the way, one little
Yes.
PS on this. George Russell. I said many things and told everyone what I thought, and it took many minutes, and I said all of the things. Max, I'll fucking kill you. You need to understand how concision is your friend, right?
It's true. You know what? It's true. George, he brought up so many different points that I think they're all sort of getting lost. Like the general sentiment of what he's saying, I think I believe
it's mostly true.
I believe that there are drivers that are like, there's nothing we can do about this. Like, this is the way he drives, this is the way he lashes out, and if we say something, then we're gonna get made fun of by everyone, and Christian Horner's gonna be weird and come up with weird insults for us, and he's too powerful and he's too strong and he's on too powerful of a team, and blah 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 blah. We can't do anything about this. And George was like, no, I'm putting my foot down. Here's my bull, pulls out a notepad with all of these lists. Yeah. And now everyone's like, wait, well, hold on, wait a second. I would like a reporter. I would like someone who does this for a living to systemically go through each and every thing and debunk it or validate it. I'm sure there are drivers that would off the record be like, he's right.
I am certain there are drivers who are 100%. Also, let's go ahead and push this forward. Next year, when somebody crashes Verstappen, go ahead and preempt the story. Madman derails champion. Don't. There will be somebody out there. I think a good many people will say, Max drives like that. Somebody's going to dump him, right? Somebody's going to force him off the track. If somebody does it repeatedly, it's not because they're crazy. That's the thing. No matter who it is. They'll be like, oh, that's an inferior driver trying to crash him. No, it won't be Lance Stroll. It won't be. It'll be somebody pretty good. See Oscar Piastri.
I like your theories. It was but then of course in typical F1 fashion, nothing happened between the two of them on Sunday. It was
no fisticuffs. We're not going to see you in the pits.
Everyone will move on. But or maybe they won't. I don't know. This is one of those times that I'm like, I'm intrigued to see if Drive to Survive got additional footage that can be used, similar to the meeting a couple years ago where Toto was screaming at Christian Horner. I think it was in 2022. That was an exclusive Netflix video, I believe. So sometimes they do get in the nooks and crannies and find some good stuff. So pumped for that.
Yeah, and by the way, we now know that there was a camera there. So if they don't include it, that in itself will be a story.
They will. It'll be there. Too juicy not to include. We already talked about Lewis's final Mercedes farewell.
I've already seen footage of Carlos Sainz in a Williams. I have seen
crazy.
Looks weird, sounds weird, but we're there. Yeah.
We are still not sure as of the taping of this if Sergio Perez will be back next season for Red Bull. We are assuming he's not, and we are assuming Yuki Tsunoda, there's nothing he can do. He's never going to be seriously considered for that seat, and it's a shame because he's by far the best driver on his team.
I don't endorse this because I think it would be very dangerous, but I did see someone on Twitter say the only solution, gives Yuki Tsunoda a gun. Just have him drive with a pistol. And I'm like, I don't think that's a very good idea. But the comedy of imagining him driving one-handed with a gun, enraged that Christian Horner will not put him in the number 2 slot that I believe he has richly earned and mostly earned at Red Bull. What's the man got to do?
Spencer, too soon.
What?
We also saw.
Did not endorse.
We also saw the last race for probably Valtteri, Colapinto, and Zhou Guan Yu. We saw the. Sorry, let me bleep that out. We saw the effing F1 movie continue to film. They have filmed this movie for so long. How are they still filming this movie?
There's so much footage. You know my theory on this, that the director is saying coverage, and what they're really doing is they're going, this is fun. We should just, we
need to film another scene.
I'm sorry. We gotta go to Abu Dhabi. We gotta go to Singapore. We gotta, we need a little more coverage. They're gonna be back next year. They'll be like, no, we didn't get enough.
We gotta do more. Yeah, right. Can they just release this movie already? When is it supposed to come out? It's supposed to come out in June, right?
Yes.
Just release the movie. They're still filming the movie.
The hardcores will probably hate it, but I will tell you, the race footage, it's gas.
I am excited. Again, my only criticism of this movie so far has been that it's called F1.
You know what I really want them to do, though? I want them to do one thing, and this is in every racing movie. I want them to be at top speed and chasing each other, and I want one of them to go, I'm dropping the hammer, and then actually shift. Even though all of the shifters are on the buttons, like are the buttons on the thing, even though you have nowhere to go at top speed, there's no other gear. I want them to do the movie cliche of actually doing a manual shifter and being like, I'm dropping the hammer, because that happens in every racing movie. It does. They're going like 220 miles an hour. And they're like, oh, no, I have another gear I can use. No, you don't.
I've seen that in every Fast and Furious. It's
Fast
been
and
done.
Furious, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're in this movie and Brad Pitt hits nitrous, that would be amazing.
Oh, I hope that happens. I also just noticed that we're matching, so I wanted to mention that.
It's a team sport.
Yeah, you're right. What? I guess we're Mercedes. We're teal today. But I just know there are so many people that were only Mercedes fans because of Lewis Hamilton that are putting all of their Mercedes stuff in a bag and donating it today.
That $160 baseball cap that you purchased
They're like, we
at
don't
the
want
Miami
this.
Grand Prix.
Why did we get this?
You're going to have to sell it for $5.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all done and dusted.
Even Lewis was like, I'm wearing red. It's the last race of the season. I'm wearing a red jumpsuit thing today. I don't even know what you would call that. He's so fashionable. Anyways, Spencer, before we go, we're almost out of time. What was your favorite race this season?
Max at Brazil was pretty insane.
That's a great choice. I was gonna say Silverstone.
Silverstone for the sentiment. Yeah.
For all of it. It was like a thing that one of those things where you're like, man, you couldn't write this. If someone wrote this, they'd be like, yeah, the producer would be like, this is too cheesy. Can't do that.
I believe it was Carlos at Australia. Carlos at Australia was great. I love seeing Lando get his first victory in Miami.
In Miami. True. With safety car and everything, drama.
Safety car drama, and seeing how elated McLaren were. Like, if you wanted the story of this year of the constructors and when it sort of started to break, Miami is that moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and that's like Miami's not the best track. It's sometimes not the best setting. It was the best possible place for them to break through. And I think it sort of is, if you go, okay, well, when did the season's key change? There.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
Me, when you go, oh, this might be a little different.
And then the following week, Doug writes, our lovely producer editor, Charles at Monaco. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I don't know how, but that was probably that was one of the coolest things of the season also. So man, a lot of good episodes of Drive to Survive next season.
So many. God, do you know how hard I'm gonna cry at the Charles at Monaco one?
Oh my God. Man. And then it was like that was cursed. He didn't do anything for a while after that, but then they ended up rebounding and he had a good season. Came in third place in the drivers' championship. Good job, Charles. That was fun. Special times. Oh man, there have been so many good races this season. It's a long season, and there are times where I was like, damn, it's still going. But now I'm sad. Now I'm sad that it's over.
I am, but then again, I can put several different condiments in my fridge and they'll still be good by the time February rolls around. I'm not
What's
saying...
your favorite condiment in your fridge at the moment?
It's a utility condiment. It's very important, but frankly, mayonnaise is the one that holds it all together. Multi-purpose. Not saying it's glamorous, but like in terms of daily use, I'll live up to the brand mayonnaise. But
cool.
You?
My banchan, I think that's what it's called. It's like the Japanese barbecue sauce. I put it on everything.
Oh,
it's so good.
Stuff in the squirt
yeah,
bottle?
It's like a red cap, blue label. Yeah.
If I had some, I'll say if I had some gochujang in my fridge, which I don't at the moment because we're out, that would be the monster. But like current roster, I gotta go with old reliable mayonnaise. Yeah, ain't glamorous. I know some people absolutely despise it, but
I'm from the Midwest. I love mayonnaise.
It gets the job done.
Condiments are great. So is F1. Oh, man.
Yeah. We are going to go on hiatus along with F1. F1 has a return date. We don't know ours yet, but we hope to see you soon. If you want to follow us, all right, in the meantime, You can follow me on Blue Sky at adsbs.bsky.social. You can also read me at Channel 6, the newsletter that is in my bio on Blue Sky. You can also find it with Channel 6 Spencer Hall. We write about all kinds of things, F1, college football, occasionally condiments. You never know. Sometimes I go to Mongolia and write about that. That happens too. And if you are college football inclined, and even if you're not, you can check us out on the Shutdown Fullcast, which is every week wherever you get your podcast. Jessica, where can they find you?
I'm also on Blue Sky, Jessica Smetana, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on the Dan Le Batard Show. And also I want to shout out Harry and Doug, who produced all of our episodes this season, edited all of our episodes, uploaded all our episodes, wrote the descriptions and the titles, and helped produce it and do all the hard back end work. They are great. You should also Harry and Doug, put your socials on the screen in this portion of the video.
Yeah, Harry's got a basketball podcast where he has a story I know you're going to want to hear in a couple of weeks, so he's going to put that on there. There, teaser.
It's a bad story. Timothy Chalamet's never done anything wrong, and don't listen to Harry. He's very good at basketball. Bye.